I still think about this one every time I hear a knock late at night. A few years back, I moved into a small apartment after a nasty breakup. It was the kind of place people always described as too nice to be real for the price. Clean hallways, quiet neighbors, neatly trimmed courtyard. Everything about it felt calm, almost perfect. For the first couple of months, I had no problems at all. I got along with people in the building, everyone smiled, said hello, minded their business. It honestly felt safe. Then one night, while I was getting ready for bed, I heard footsteps in the hall. Not normal footsteps, fast little running sounds, light, quick, like a kid sprinting past my door. I checked the peephole, but the hallway was empty. That was strange because there were no children living in my section of the building, at least none that I had ever seen. I shrugged it off and went back to bed. But the sound came back. A night later, then another. Sometimes it was running, sometimes it was a faint giggle. Once or twice I thought I heard tiny feet stop right outside my door, like whoever it was had frozen in place just long enough to listen. My apartment was on the ground floor, with my bedroom window facing the courtyard. The building entrance was locked, so nobody could just wander in. Still, the window sat low enough that someone outside could walk right up to it if they wanted. At first, I never worried about it. It was just one of those details you notice when you first move into a place. Then one night, I woke up to the sound of children laughing outside my bedroom window. It was so close that my skin went cold. I sat up and listened. The sound came again, soft and breathy, like two kids trying hard not to be caught. I told myself it was probably some neighborhood kids being stupid near the building, so I tapped the glass and made a sharp shh sound. The laughter stopped. For one long second, the night went completely still. Then I heard a tiny tap on the window. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I grabbed the curtain and yanked it open, ready to scare whoever was there. Nothing. Just the dark courtyard, empty grass, silent walkways. No kids, no movement, no one standing under the window. I stood there staring out for several seconds, trying to make sense of it. There was nowhere they could have gone that fast, nowhere to hide. I closed the curtain and told myself not to be ridiculous. The next few nights, I heard them again. Soft giggles, small movements in the hall, sometimes just a whisper outside the window. I stopped reacting. I figured if these were kids messing around, ignoring them would make them go away. I have nieces and nephews, and I know how they are. If you give them attention, they keep going. If you ignore them, they usually get bored. So that is what I did. I ignored them. A couple days later, while I was at work, I got an email from the apartment manager asking me to come by the office as soon as I got home. Her message was short and serious. She said it was urgent. All day I was uneasy. I kept thinking maybe my rent had bounced or there had been some issue with the unit. When I finally got there, she asked me to lock the office door behind me. Her voice was low, almost careful. A security guard was already there, sitting off to the side with a laptop open. The manager told me they had found something on the surveillance footage. She turned the screen toward me. It was the hallway outside my apartment. Grainy black and white video, timestamp around 2 a.m. Two small hooded figures appeared in the frame and walked straight to my door. They looked like children, maybe 10 or 12 years old. They stood so close to the door that it looked wrong, like they were pressed against it. Then the manager fast-forwarded the footage. They did not move. For almost 10 minutes, they just stood there, not pacing, not talking, not looking around, just frozen beside my door like they were waiting for something. Then one of them reached out and tried the handle. You could see the tiny hand turn the knob, then try again, harder this time. The door rattled, but it stayed shut. After that, they suddenly turned and disappeared out of frame together, almost like they were skipping away. I felt sick watching it. I told them about the giggling outside my window. We checked the courtyard footage, but nothing showed up. No kids, No one near the window at all. The police came. I gave a statement. Security went through the cameras trying to figure out where the two figures had gone, but it was as if they vanished into the building itself. No other camera caught them leaving. The next night, I stayed awake. I was determined to catch them, or at least see them with my own eyes. Nothing happened. No laughter, no footsteps, no tapping on the window. A whole week passed before I heard the hallway noise again. It was around 1:30 in the morning. I muted the TV and listened. Then I heard it. My doorknob, slow, careful, turning back and forth like someone small was testing it. My stomach dropped. I walked to the door and shouted for whoever it was to get away from my apartment. Then I heard a child laugh. Not loudly, just a soft little laugh right outside my door. And then another voice, quieter this time, almost polite. "Mom, we're home. Open the door." I went completely still. I looked through the peephole. Two small figures stood in the hallway with their heads lowered, hooded, motionless. The same voice came again, smaller and more desperate this time. "Please, let us in. We're home." That word stayed with me. Home. I yelled back that their mother didn't live there anymore and that I was calling the police. Both of them started giggling. The doorknob began shaking again, harder now. One of them slammed their body into the door, once, twice. The door held. Then everything stopped. No laughter, no movement, no sound. When I looked through the peephole again, the hallway was empty. I didn't open the door. I called the police right away, and they treated it like a prank from neighborhood kids. Maybe that was all it was, they said. Maybe a bad joke. A few days later, I ran into the apartment manager in the parking lot. She pulled me aside and asked me whether anything else had happened. I told her no. She looked uneasy, like she was deciding whether to say something she shouldn't. Then she told me the woman who lived in my apartment before me had gone through something terrible involving her children. She didn't give details. She wouldn't even give me names. She just said enough to make my skin crawl. Then she stopped herself and said she had already said too much. Before she walked away, she looked at me and said, "This was not a prank." I never forgot that. After that, I never heard from those children again. But I still think about the parts that never made sense. How did they get into a locked building with no key? Why did security and police lose them on every camera? Why did they keep calling my place home? I moved out eventually, but even now I can't explain what happened there. And the worst part is this: I don't believe in ghosts, but I also can't explain those children.
This happened about 10 years ago, and honestly, it still makes my stomach turn. For the longest time, I refused to tell anyone because I knew exactly how it sounded. People either laughed it off or assumed I was making it up. My wife was the one who finally pushed me to write it down. She said maybe somebody else had lived through something similar. Back then, I was working a miserable retail job just to pay the bills. Nothing exciting. Long shifts, cheap paycheck. The kind of routine that slowly drains the life out of you. One afternoon, I walked out to my car and saw a bright pink sticky note hanging from my door handle. It said, "You're special. Hope your day is amazing." There was even a little smiley face sticker on it. It caught me off guard. It was strange, sure, but it also made me smile. I thought maybe somebody was being kind. Maybe it was a joke from a coworker. Either way, I did not think much of it. Then it happened again the next day, and the day after that. Each time I left work, another pink note was waiting for me in the exact same spot. At first, the messages were playful, almost sweet. Then they started getting more personal, flirtier. I was surprised, but I'll admit it, I liked the attention. At that point in my life, I was not getting much of it from anyone. After a few notes, I decided to play along. I wrote a reply and left it on my car before heading in for my shift. Nothing too bold, just friendly at first, with a little teasing mixed in. When I came out after work, there was another note waiting for me.
This time, the person answered back like they were flirting right along with me. I had no idea whether this was some joke or whether someone was actually serious, but I kept it going for a few more days. Right before a day off, I left a note that said something like, "Don't miss me too much tomorrow." When I got back to my car that evening, the reply was just a sad face. That should have been the end of it. I assumed whoever it was had gotten bored. The next morning, I stayed home and ran a few errands around the house. Late that morning, I stepped outside and froze. Another pink note was on my car. This one said, "You look cute when you sleep." My entire body went cold. That was no longer playful. That was not harmless. That was someone letting me know they had watched me. Now I was sure it had to be someone from work, someone who knew where I lived, someone trying to scare me. I crumpled the note and threw it away. The messages kept coming for a few more days. That is when they changed again. The tone turned ugly. The notes started saying things like, "Answer me," and "I know where you live." At that point, I finally thought about calling the police, but I still convinced myself it was probably someone I knew, maybe a coworker, maybe some twisted prank. I decided to leave one last note before work. I wrote that whoever it was needed to stop or I would call the police. I did not actually expect that to solve anything. I just wanted to see what would happen. When I got back after work, my note was gone. And for the first time in days, there was no new message. I remember feeling relieved. Not safe, just relieved. That night, I woke up in the middle of the night. I thought I heard a sound in the house. At first, it was nothing clear, just a faint shuffle somewhere in the dark. I lay there listening, trying to tell myself it was the house settling. But then I heard it again. I got up, grabbed a baseball bat I kept nearby, and stepped into the hallway. My bedroom opened into a long stretch leading to the living room, dining area, and kitchen. Every step I took made my head fill with worst-case scenarios. I kept thinking about someone hiding in a corner, behind the couch, or standing just out of view. When I reached the end of the hall, I stopped. All the courage I had disappeared. I turned on the dim lights and scanned the room without moving any farther. The house looked empty, but empty did not mean safe. Shadows sat heavy in the corners. The couch looked too dark. The kitchen looked too still. I listened for breathing, for a floorboard, for anything. Nothing. After a minute, I turned the lights off and backed down the hallway as fast as I could without running. I kept expecting someone to come after me. No one did. Back in my room, I locked the door, turned on the TV, and stayed awake until I finally passed out from exhaustion. The next morning, I walked to the kitchen to get some juice, still half asleep. Then I saw it. A pink sticky note was stuck right on the refrigerator. It said, "You can't keep me away." There was that same stupid smiley face at the end. I stood there frozen. Then I checked every door and window in the house. Locked. Every single one. Nobody had a key. I knew that for a fact. My family lived out of state, and I trusted no one locally with access to my place. I was extremely careful about locks, paranoid even. And yet, somebody had gotten inside my house and left a note on my fridge. I called the police immediately. They took a report and said they would look into it, but there was almost nothing for them to go on. The parking lot at my job did have cameras, but my section was outside their range. They couldn't catch whoever had been leaving the notes. Their conclusion was the same thing I had already feared. It had got to be someone who knew me. But that still didn't explain the note inside my house. I stayed at a friend's place for a couple of nights because I didn't want to sleep there alone. Then I bought new locks and changed everything. The first night back, my friend stayed with me. Nothing happened. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. No notes at work, no notes at home. Nothing. I almost started to believe it was over. Then, more than 2 months later, I walked out one morning and saw another pink note on my front door. I picked it up with shaking hands. It said, "I guess you don't want to play anymore." I called the police again. After that, I installed cameras around the house. Nothing ever happened again. Maybe changing the lock stopped them. Maybe they only had an old key. Maybe they got bored. Or maybe they were just waiting. I still don't know who it was, and that part haunts me the most. Why me? Why did they watch me sleep? Why did they get inside my house and leave that note, then disappear for months like they had never existed? Even now, when I see a pink sticky note, I think back to that time and get a sick feeling in my stomach. Whatever that person wanted from me, I'm just grateful I'm still here to tell the story.